to welcome Judd Rubin here. Judd is one of the experts on agency technology and processing systems. I mean, he's been at all of the big ones, MediaOcean and Strata, and even for a short while at Hudson MX, which was a noble effort. But for the last several years, he's been behind the scenes orchestrating the development and expansion of accountability, which may not be a platform some of you readers are familiar with, but he's got some big agencies, agencies like Wyden and Kennedy and Barkley and Cowan and Cross Media, and even a couple of IPG shops like Hill Holiday and Deutsch. And what I'd like to do is, well, break the news. Jed's been promoted to CEO. The founder will still be with the company as a chairman, but he's taking over and has a very ambitious agenda. And now he's the hands-on guy. So I'd just like to ask him a little bit about what led up to this promotion and what his plans are for the not too distant future. And then we'll dig into a little bit of the weeds here on what's right and what's wrong with agency media and accounting and agency technology systems. So Judd, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, like you've been a major factor in accountability's growth for several years now. Uh, so what's your agenda now that you're the boss, and where are you going to take it?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've done, I've been here for 4.5 years. And first of all, thanks a lot, Joe, for talking to me. Um, we've had tremendous momentum, and we also have this really narrow clarity of purpose. And that purpose is something that Terry McMillan, the founder, started. And he recognized, because he himself was a finance director at agencies, and he realized that the agencies are underserved with generic products that just don't know anything about an agency's business. So I've completely bought in to that vision. And it's really, really exciting because I can look at anybody in the face, no matter where they are. I mean, we're in over 30 countries, and I can have a one-on-one conversation like this, don't need a salesperson, and can explain that prior to accountability, agencies were really in kind of a pretty bad situation.
Well, let's go back a little bit and talk about what led up to accountability in the first place. I mean, this business started out in a simple time, 15% commissions, and agencies just needed some big enterprise systems to basically pay the media and pay their staff. And it was a simple science back then. But things have gotten very complex. And over the years, I've heard a lot of grievances and kvetching about Donovan and now MediaOcean, and then other mid-size or smaller companies come in and they all claim that they're going to innovate and revolutionize the way this gets done. What led up to accountability, and what is the manifesto or the strategy of your organization, and what differentiates you from others?
Yeah, so prior to accountability, and this is true for other fintech or ad tech in our industry, we are a financial management platform. That's all we do. We only serve agencies, and we're a modern cloud-based platform. So that's unique. So if you aren't on accountability, you've been stuck subsidizing products that weren't built for our industry. So if you're on NetSuite or if you're on SAP, all fine products, those were built for manufacturing, not for us. So that year-over-year expense is one aspect. And the other part is you'll never get the performance.
So, right. So there's a lot of these big box, Oracle, whatever type Salesforce solutions. And a lot of times agencies intermingle these different enterprise solutions for different purposes. But there's also been this organic movement to create agency specific processing, starting with Donovan, leading up to you and your competitors. Um, At the same time, we're now at an era where some of the platforms, the actual media providers, the Googles, the Metas, the Amazons, are providing some of these end-to-end services too. So why do we need something that really specifically deals with the needs of an agency in general, but also agencies in particular?
Yeah, because what you asked earlier and I didn't get to was you said, there was a time that everything seemed rosy, that you get your 15% commission, everyone's doing well, almost those Mad Men days. But the complexity, and we used to call it the fragmentation of media, uh, just the complexity and the specialization of everything. In my head, I always think of it as I go to the corner store, and I grew up in Iowa, and there were, might have been three types of beers you could buy. And in my corner store in New York, there's probably 37, right? Everything is specialized. When you think about the amount of data to be able to make informed decisions that an agency has to face. They have disparate systems. Sometimes they have old technology, so they're not speaking to each other. So, how are you, Joe, as an agency exec and managing your business? How do you know what to do next if you can't click a button and run a report and see what's going on with cash flow, client profitability? I mean, you're just behind if you're not doing that. So just for the sake of not only just not falling behind, but this is the most evolving industry that I've ever been in, right? So you have to be and our responsibility is to at least be in lockstep, if not one step ahead of what's going on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Conversely, you now have a lot of single point solutions that are dealing with very specific needs, but you're providing both ends, an enterprise level and dealing with specific pain points that a unique agency or client has. Um, I like to think an analogy to what I think accountability is an agency like PMG that really got its chops from focusing on its own homegrown technology and enabling clients to do things that they couldn't do through their enterprise systems or a traditional agency. And that's why they won business like Nike and other major accounts. They don't really show us what they do under the hood, but we know they're resolving it because they're winning the business. Same thing with you. Can you talk a little bit about um, how you how you work with agencies to specialize their systems, their OS, so to speak.
Yeah, well, the first thing is, Barclays is a great example, is that they took the initiative to do their own transformation, and they just realized both on hardware and software that things need to work differently to be able to compete and win business. I think PMG did the same thing. Like, how do we scale efficiently and how do we just get smarter? So with our platform and being able to interoperate with lots of other systems, that to us is the key. And that is, you mentioned Wyden. I think one of the reasons why we were invited to compete against Microsoft, SAP, NetSuite, and others is that we don't claim to do everything. We
Mhm.
are the best at one thing, right? We are the absolute best at financial management for agencies all over the world. So you, as a global CFO, you could click and see what's going on in Tokyo. You can see what's going on in Tel Aviv. You can do all the currency conversion. That's just what you need. And you need to have a platform that plays nicely with others so you can have what a lot of people refer to as a connected agency. To me, that's just table stakes. And the way I've been thinking about this company for 4.5 years is it's hard, but you better love the problem you're solving. If you love the problem you're solving, this is an awesome story. I guarantee you, PMG loves the problem they're solving. If your problem that you're solving is just trying to increase your revenue all the time, as opposed to focus on the industry problems or our customer problems, you're never going to kind of gain the excitement and momentum that we have.
So to me, it seems like there's two kinds of agencies, but there's probably a third one in between, which is there's agencies that want to build and own a proprietary tech platform. There's some that want to lease or rent one. So just today we reported on Dentsu doing a deal with MIQ to use their new state-of-the-art AI programmatics, you know, and that's another single point solution. But in that case, instead of building their own, Dentsu's going with the best of class. Other agencies work with them. Um, so do you think agencies, which end of that spectrum do you think they should be on? Should they be building, buying, renting, all of the above?
It's Yeah, I think it's all the above. I think if they're underserved, they're going to be tempted to go out there and build something on their own. But I mean, you mentioned Hudson MX, like I was there. It's not tricky to unseat other software systems. It's a lot of work. It requires a ton of focus and grit. It's not for the faint of heart. So I'm a little prejudiced in that the time I've been in this industry, we've always been promoting don't, agency, don't build your own software, concentrate on what you're good at. At accountability, it's an easier sell because we're very product confident. And what that does for everyone that at an agency, it frees them up to do their best work. I mean, they didn't go into an agency to build software, right? They went in there to build great ads, to have amazing media plans.
But to me, the that segment of the industry is a lot like media measurement with Nielsen. You know, Nielsen was the dominant platform until they aged out, and then it took a new player, whether it was AGB or Scan America or whomever. Lately, a lot of alternative currencies to come into the market, and then usually what happens is the dominant monopoly player innovates enough that they drive that competition out. So with Donovan, you had MediaBank come along. That resulted in a merger. There was some innovation and growth there, but basically was the same old, same old. You
Yeah.
had Hudson MX do the same thing. And in the end, it always seems to me the industry caves in and just goes with the dominant player because it's easy. Um, but I think the truth is there's lots of smaller, like I said, single point, but also enterprise level solutions now. Um, so why should we believe that accountability is going to emerge as a true alternative to Mediation, Freewheel, Strata, whom have it?
Yeah, so we're partners with all of them. We don't want to compete against any of them. Let them do great stuff on the media buying side. Everybody needs a back end, and nobody has the modern agency specific platform that we have. So my job as CEO is to making sure that we scale, but scale effectively, and we don't lose the focus of what made us interesting. I'm sure all those companies that you just mentioned, when they started out, had that same excitement that we do. I mean, we've grown over 500% in my 4.5 years that I've been here. We've had almost, we're over 99% customer retention. Our net retention numbers are fantastic. We're profitable. We can't lose sight on how we got here. We didn't get here by becoming a sales organization. We came here by trying and working our hardest every day to solve the problems in agency finance.
Yeah, I think it's true. Because I don't think you have a very high profile right now, and hopefully this interview will help. But I
Yeah.
think you've done the work and won the business through word of mouth and customer testimonials, endorsements, and retention. Um, so kudos to you for doing that. I think what you're saying here is that you're hyper focused. You really have one customer base, which is the agency stack, and how to make it work together as best as possible, whether it's with another enterprise solution or another single point solution, or whether it's a client interface or not. Your goal is to understand the ecosystem of that agency, its unique culture, its unique business needs, and to make it work.
Yeah. I would also just say that, arming our agencies with unfair advantages and destroying generic solutions that take advantage of agencies. That's how I see our mission.
Can you get into anything like that? I don't want you to name any names because this is
Oh,
very.
I'll name names. I'm happy to name names.
But like, give an example of that competitive advantage that you innovated for a client that made something that was a pain point work better and lead to
Yeah.
innovation. Okay.
And that being said, you're not wrong that almost everything in our success and our growth, which has been pretty phenomenal, is word of mouth. And no matter what we say, even though all of our people have a combination of, they're either finance, agency, and tech people, but they're going to talk to our customers and they're going to find out what was their experience like. And they're not going to believe it at first. And then they're going to go through an implementation and a migration, something that has always been a headache. And then they're going to realize, actually, this is great. Now we can do a million things we couldn't do before. Um, but your, a real example is when one of our enterprise customers left a big box generic solution. One of the reasons why they left is their real true cost of ownership was 70 to 90% year over year in excess of the license fee, right? So if our license fee per user is $75 and somebody else is $99, that's the beginning of a story. If you have to constantly pay to customize a product that wasn't built for your industry, so it can do basic stuff, client profitability, WIP reports. You're never, you at a certain point, you're going to get extraordinarily frustrated that you're spending this money and you're not getting the performance. So an example is WIP, work in progress. Hey, you're an agency. You have to know you have this many people, you're doing projects for a client. Well, how much of the project has been done? How much has been billed for? How much of that can I recognize as revenue? So those three data points I can look at and say, hey, you better get in touch with the client because we're over servicing and we need to figure this out. There's lots of things you can do with that data point that if you don't have a proper WIP report, then I don't know how you run your business. So
So
that's an example of leaving something that was a big generic solution that everyone in the world would have heard about, but really has no basis to be with an agency.
So there's a productivity aspect here. It's not just making things work better. It's about making work more efficiently and getting the campaign or the invoicing or whatever it is out the door quicker, um, making projects work
Performance. Yeah.
better.
I mean, they didn't even ask about money at first when we were going through this because there was so much waste. But they reported later on the enormous savings that they were, having to spend. But when I talk about performance, the other aspect of it is if you're on software that out of the box can support an agency's nuanced workflow, then if you're in India, that there's no latency. You're still going through. It's the same syndicated product wherever you are in the world. If you're on a generic platform, then you've built a customization layer above it to be able to run your business. So now there's tons of latency because it has to go through customization and then it gets to the software. And then the dirty secret is you have to keep customizing year over year because every time they release something, it breaks your customization.
Yeah, it's not just time zones, it's languages and it's currency conversions and all those things when you're dealing across the globe.
Well, the
Um,
the other is they just don't know agencies. So they might know their software and they might know how things work, but they have no idea how it works within an agency and what those needs are. So there's just that when you think about it, the time that you're wasting, and then the chance that those requirements that an agency would give off to a third party to say, hey, we need to build a WIP report. A lot of stuff gets lost in translation. And it's just not something that's going to happen here. And we know one thing, we know agencies.
So agencies are changing for other reasons too now, and I'm wondering how you're keeping up with it and what your future plan is for it, and specifically with AI adoption. So we're in a period of hyper uh, generative AI where everybody's slapping a generative AI interface on anything and calling it AI powered. But we're moving into a period of agentic AI where, you know, the tools will actually enable the systems to do things that humans had to do before. Um,
Yeah.
I know there's a workforce question about that, but I'm talking now about agency productivity. As more and more of that AI gets onboarded, it's going to change the way you operate with agencies to get efficiency and to make sure all that work in progress and everything is happening. But also, isn't the AI a potential competitive threat to you? Can't we get to the point at some point where AIs can write code and create software systems that enable agencies to operate better?
Yeah. So I think all that is, potentially true, but at least in, for the next 10 plus years, there's a ton of pressure on agencies. What are they going to do and how do they adopt AI? And our agencies, those agencies that left other solutions and moved to accountability, they might not realize this yet, but they already laid the foundation for applying AI. And that means that because it's a modern platform that intrinsically uh, supports all of the workflow actions of an agency. So all those data points are in there in a structured way. It's the prerequisite for any meaningful AI case. So, the things that you're doing now in our platform, just, if you're entering time, you're doing job cost accounting, client billing, client profitability, all that is captured in a standardized structure. So that allows the system and AI to make connections, surface insights, and automate tasks. And you can't automate tasks if you don't have reliable, organized data. So I'm super excited. And of course, is it going to be a threat? I think there's a threat if we don't continue to innovate and adopt AI because it feeds well also into the whole reason why we exist, which is can we help automate and provide relief for menial tasks to our customers so they can do higher value things?
Okay. All right. Well, I know it's hard to predict the future, but is there any last thoughts on where you'd like to take accountability now that you're the chief and things you been wanting to do that you weren't able to do before that you see on the horizon?
Yeah, I really just want to move quicker. I feel a sense of urgency all the time. I know that if we continue to scale, but scale impactfully and effectively, meaning let's not forget what makes us special. Our agencies look at us as being an extension of their team. I've never experienced that anywhere I've ever worked in my life. If we scale properly and retain our focus, then we're going to do great. If we just move thoughtfully and quickly to execute our product roadmap with our customer retention, this is just long-term value. It's great. I could not be more excited. And the reason why I feel that we're on a mission is agencies have a much better chance of surviving whatever is around the corner once they have a connected agency, once they have modernized their software. And we should be the foundation of their financial tech stack and the heartbeat of their agency.